All right, I'm back, y'all. It's time for our study group time. So we are doing The Secret Study Group. So for those of you who are tuning in, that's what we're doing. That's what we're reading. So if you want to learn about energy and how to shift energy and change energy and manifest things or align with manifestation, this is a really good starting point. And I do mean starting point just because a lot of people, when they first find out about The Secret, or they watch the film, or they read the book, immediately they go into like hyper manifesting mode where they're trying to like manifest every single thing they can think of, and then they get a little bit confused in the process and they get lost in that, and then when they don't see things happen, they decide to pull back or they just drop the attempt. And so it takes a little more work and a little more effort. So what we do is basically we go through the book and I read the material and then I break down some of what they're teaching or some of what they're sharing with us. The problem is that most people don't realize there's a lot more that goes into like manifesting or aligning with energy. It isn't just thinking about something and then it's showing up. You have to intend thoroughly and fully. You have to shift your state of being in order for you to align with some things. Especially the bigger or the more it means to you, the more work you have to do. That's pretty much what it is. If you don't care about something or don't have any interest in something, then it is probably not going to show up. But if you have some interest or if you have some investment, then that's easier to make happen than something that you care a lot about. So it takes more work and more effort. And so my job is just to kind of go through this with you guys and break it down and make it easier. And then I'm going to disagree with some things just because you learn some things when you go through some things. And I learned a lot about manifesting things and, aligning and shifting my energy over the many years that I've been doing this. So I read the book. Basically, for our study group, we read the book. I stop, I give commentary, I give my response. For those of you tuning in, if you want to participate in the study group, questions must pertain to either the material in the book or to spiritual topical questions. And so no questions, no personal questions or no personal readings. I'm not doing readings. That was in the last hour. This is all topical or material based regarding the book. Okay. Everybody can do it. Yeah, Miss Jenny. And everybody's just like, can everybody do it? Yes, Miss Jenny. Everybody can do it. This is not just like some people have this ability and some people don't. No, every single person that I know, that I've seen practice it properly, has been able to manifest and to align. It's something that everybody can do. For some people, it may be a little more harder because you have to work through some conditioned ways of being that have completely affect that it almost like taints your mechanisms. For example, someone who has grown, I'll use myself as an example. Like I grew up in the hood. My mom was on food stamps. That was what I grew up with. I mean, we didn't eat out. We couldn't afford anything, and so our life was very much like at the lowest of the low. And I had to, because of me growing up that way, I had a lot of conditioned behavior, a lot of conditioned mindset. Like even to this day, there's still some things that still stick with me because we didn't always have the opportunity to eat out. Whenever I ate, at someone else's home, whenever I went to my aunt's house and they had leftovers from going out to eat, I would like scarf it down. I would like completely overeat just because it was my chance to eat something that was eating out. And so to this day, whenever I eat out, I want to eat it all and I want to lick the plate and that's a conditioned state of being because of the lack of those opportunities when I was a kid. But that's a conditioned behavior. That sticks with you for your lifetime. You have to work on deconditioning yourself, on changing that pattern of behavior, because if you don't change it, it's adding and fueling a way of being, a way of operating that you may not realize is contributing to a state of being. So again, this is no personal readings in this live, y'all. So this is only study group. No personal readings or personal connections will be made in this live. It's only for the study group material, study group, study group, study group. So no personal questions, study group only, y'all. All right, guys. Yeah, I guess so. Stacy's like, I love the book. It helped me realize I had to be careful with my words in general conversations. I guess so. Here's the thing. Being careful with your words doesn't change the way you feel about something. And what has to get worked on isn't so much the words you use as the intent behind it or what it's rooted to. For example, like if someone is complaining about, God, I just paid this off and every time I get a little money, something comes up. You can just not say that, but if you still believe that, it doesn't matter what you say because you're still going to think that, so it doesn't really, words are just an expression, a form of expression. If someone doesn't have the ability to communicate through language or words, they are still manifesting stuff that they don't really want to manifest or experience in this lifetime. So the words don't really have much to do with it. Words are expressing the inner state of being. So if you are trying to catch your words, before you try to just stop using those words, look at what it's connected to, what idea or thought or belief it's connected to. That's what needs to be addressed. That's what needs to be shifted. Because if you can shift that, that'll definitely line you up with more of what you're wanting to create. Tell me my real name and prove yourself. Girl, get a life. You can go to my website. I literally have like so many public predictions that have come true. I don't have to prove myself. So you can go to my site. It's all there. I don't have to do it here. I just did a live. You could have been a part of that and seen me do it. So good luck. God bless and be blessed. Malu Martinez. I haven't read the book, but saw it on Netflix. I'm a squirrel at reading, so I will do Audible. Is that okay? Yeah, you can do the. Yeah, the video is good. The video. I mean, if you just want to watch the film's the easiest way to like. The film is the easiest way to like get the information that you need quickly, so that way you can use it or put it to use. However, what I would recommend is sometimes you just have to like go over the material more than once, just because it takes practice and it takes time to fully integrate and understand it. If you watch it once, you might feel inspired. You might feel like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this. But then people don't fully understand the process and it takes time to integrate it. So you might have to return to the material. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter which way you like take in the information or assume the information. You can do it whatever works for you. Like I read books and then I listen to books when I go for my walks sometimes. And then I also watch stuff on TV that's like a documentary of a book, but I still want to read the book. So it just depends on what works for you. Okay, going over here before I get started. Hi, Sarah. Let's see. Sarah's like, with that book in question, someone is giving me the silent treatment. How do you apply that? What do you mean, like, how do you apply that? If someone doesn't want to talk, then they don't have to talk. Like, you can just, like, distract yourself. Don't let yourself get caught up in that person's intent to try to, like, create drama or try to make you feel a certain way. So they're giving you a silent treatment either because they're intending to hurt you or because they're intending to make things challenging. Then, okay, then throw your energy into that, distract yourself, like focus on something else or put your attention on something else that's more valuable to you or that means more to you. Don't just like submit and then let yourself fall into that, because if not, then it'll just become this endless cycle, and then that'll become a manipulative tactic that will always be utilized or used. So I would just like focus on something else or pay attention to other things. Called The Secret. The movie was so I always fall asleep. When I first saw the movie, I liked it. I really enjoyed it. The book has way more than the movie though. The movie only covers so much information. The book is a little more detailed and gives a little more background to it. There's actually two versions of it. A lot of people don't realize this. There were two The Secrets. The first one was like I guess you can call it the trial run, and the first one was created with Esther Hicks. For those of you who are really into law of attraction, Esther Hicks is, she channels Abraham. So all of the Abraham material, all of the stuff online with Abraham Hicks, that's Esther Hicks. And so she channels Abraham. What ended up happening is that she and her husband, Jerry, when they worked out this arrangement with with Rhonda, when they worked out the arrangement with Rhonda, they were very specific in how they wanted to utilize that material, and they felt that the idea that Rhonda had was just too simple and it wasn't detailed or specific enough, and they wanted more information for people. So they specifically were expecting for there to be more like follow-up and like information that was more strategy based, and that didn't happen, and they had a little bit of a dispute, and they went into legal actions against each other. And so basically, I think Jerry and Esther Hicks, who channel Abraham, I think threatened to sue Rhonda if she did they were not removed from the project. So in the first film, they were in the first one, and then after that whole shenanigans happened, they were removed from the film, and then they put in other people who are now known as like the teachers from The Secret, and they were included in, and then the original film was just dropped after that. So a lot of people don't understand, like there's a lot of drama and a lot of nitty-gritty that happens in the spiritual community. People want to think that, oh, because people are spiritual or because they're a spiritual teacher or whatever, that they don't get into it behind the scenes. No, people are people. People will always be people. So that doesn't ever change. Just because you're a spiritual person doesn't mean you stop being a human being, or sometimes a shitty human being, because you can be a shitty human being and still be a spiritual person as well. So it just depends. But yeah, that was the whole situation behind that. I love hearing about those little nitty-gritties behind the scene, because it helps me to understand that there is not this expectation for us to be perfect or ideal human beings, or to be this perfect idealized version of whatever people think you should be, is not necessary. You can make change. You can do a lot of good in this world by just being human and embracing that humanity, and then offering what you're going to offer. You don't have to be this perfect version of anything. All right, so I'm on page 45, and the chapter is How to Use the Secret. You are a creator, and there is an easy process to create using the law of attraction. The greatest teachers and avatars have shared the creative process through their wondrous work in a myriad of forms. Some great teachers created stories to demonstrate how the universe works. The wisdom contained in their stories have been handed down through the centuries and has become legendary. Many people living today do not realize that the essence of these stories is the very truth of life. If you think about Aladdin and his lamp, Aladdin picks up the lamp, dusts it off, and out pops the genie. The genie always says one thing: your wish is my command. The story now goes that there are 3 wishes, but if you trace the story back to its origins, there's absolutely no limit whatsoever to the wishes. Think about that one. Now, let's take this metaphor and apply it to your life. Remember, Aladdin is the one who always asks for what he wants. Then you've got the universe at large, which is the genie. Traditions have called it so many things: your holy guardian angel, your higher self. You can put any label on it, and you choose the one that works best for you. But every tradition has told us there's something bigger than us, and the genie always says one thing: your wish is my command. This wonderful story demonstrates how your whole life and everything in it has been created by you. The genie has simply answered your every command. The genie is the law of attraction, and it is always present and always listening to everything you think, speak, and act. The genie assumes that everything you think about, you want. That everything you speak about, you want. That everything you act upon is what you want. You are the master of the universe, and the genie is there to serve you. The genie never questions your commands. You think it, and the genie immediately begins to leverage the universe through people, circumstances, and events to fulfill your wishes. The creative process. The creative process used in The Secret, which was taken from the New Testament in the Bible, is an easy guideline for you to create what you want in 3 simple steps. Step 1, ask. The first step is to ask. Make a command of the universe. Let the universe know what you want. The universe responds to your thoughts. So let me stop there for a second because I kind of want to dive into this for a few moments because this is a little bit more complicated than what they're saying. First of all, I don't think of the universe as a genie just because I know that this environment and this reality has been designed and set up the way it has for very specific reasons. Just because I showed up and I believe that everything can be created exactly that same way doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to get that, because I still have to operate within the confines of the reality. In other words, if you really want something and it goes against the reality of what you are supposed to be going through in this lifetime, it's not going to happen. No matter how hard you try, it's just not going to show up. And that's where some people get a little bit perturbed because they buy into this idea that, well, if I want something, it'll be like magically created for me. No, it won't. It doesn't work that way. So whenever she talks about like the first step is to ask, make a command of the universe, let the universe know what you want, the universe responds to your thoughts. So there's two ways to go about this. When you ask, which means when you release an intention of or a desire, you can release the desire in two ways. You can actually ask, and this is a really good thing that I get the experience of on a regular basis, where I'm having conversations with God in my mind and I'm asking about certain things like, why is this way, God? Like, why does this happen? And I ask about specific situations or specific instances or things that occur. Not so much like, tell me why did this happen to me? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like, just like, for example, like, why does this occur whenever someone does this and this, that? Like, I have these conversations with God in my mind. And whenever I ask that, I just like wonder. And it's more of a wondering, like, I wonder about this, or I wonder why this is the way this is. So whenever I ask in that way, and it's very innocent, it's very like, there's no pressure or there's not a lot of like conflictive energy within me when I'm asking. I'm just simply curious and I wonder. When you're curious and you wonder something consistently or just a few times, it starts to produce a charge, and that information, that energy is going to come to you. And so usually whenever I do that, the answer will come to me within a relatively short period of time. It's either going to show up as an event that I experience, as a person who teaches me, or as a situation that exemplifies exactly what I'm wondering. So that's the asking, that's that innocent asking kind of, curiosity kind of asking. That I know is a thing because it happens all the time. The other thing though is when it's something that you care a lot more about or you really care about, you have to have a solid intention and follow through. In other words, if I am intending to be financially free or to have financial freedom in my life, if I just sit on my ass and wait for money to fall out of the sky, it's not going to happen. Some people have lucked out and they've like won the lottery, but then shortly thereafter they end up broke or they end up in arrears and they basically have to file for bankruptcy, which is a regular occurrence with people who win the lottery because they're not prepared for it. And so what ends up happening is if you are, let's say, desiring to be financially free or having financial freedom, but you do nothing to follow through with that, you're just having that wish and desire and hoping that positivity is going to make it happen, is not going to happen. You're basically just burning. You're sitting in a car and you put no gas into it and you didn't fill the tires up with air, and you're just sitting in the car and you're just expecting that the car's going to show up where you want it to show up or be where you want to be. No, like you need to get your ass out. You need to put some air in the tires. You need to put gasoline in it, and then you can get behind it and then follow the signs or follow the flow of energy. So you get on the highway, you got the signs, that's your flow of energy. And so putting tire into it means getting engaged enough with it that you care enough to do something about it. So that's just putting the tires in. Putting the fuel or the gasoline is really trying to understand what is within your power, within your control to change. So if you want something to happen and you won't be financially free, then what can you potentially do, or what can you possibly do that is within your control? Well, I can learn to budget. I can start to save. I can start to look into investments. I can start to invest in small amounts. I can start to plan for the future. I can start reading about more financial stability and balance and budgeting, etc. So that's what's within your power. And if you start taking steps in that direction, you will start to realize that things get easier and you feel better. And as you continue, now you might have a few slapbacks, because if you're one of those people where you believe anytime I have a little extra money, all of a sudden something happens and I lose it all, or I have to pay for all this, then even if you try saving money or try working on that, expect a few slapbacks. But you have to persist. Persist past the slap back, because if you give into the slap back, you've accepted the old model of being, you've accepted the reality that you're used to as the reality, and you're not going around it or going past it. You just accepted that and you slap back into what's normal for you. So if you start working on your finances, start saving, start looking at how to reduce your expenses, be more careful and cautious and save and all of that other stuff, and follow through, then you will start to experience a lightening up of your energy. And then if you have a slap back, okay, well, this is what happened. Let me keep trying. Let me keep going. But if you persist, then you'll punch through the slap back, or that boundary that is so attached to your old way of being. It usually takes 30 to 90 days to break through a old model of energy. So your state of being, the stuff that you constantly deal with in your life, you have to persist through a 30 to 90 day period before there's enough energy to support the new state of being. Again, this is with things that you care more about. And then once you start to do that, things start to align much more easily, and you start having opportunities that are going to make it easier for you to reach your goal. And then you might actually have extra money show up out of nowhere, and then start having these mini miracles start to show up where you can take advantage and then continue to move in the direction of your desire. So those are two ways of lining up and manifesting. But that's where your part comes in, what you have to do to get there. Okay. You get to choose what you want, but you must get clear about what you want. This is your work. If you're not clear, then the law of attraction cannot bring you what you want. You will be sending out a mixed frequency, and you can only attract mixed signals. For the first time in your life, perhaps, work out what it is that you really want. Now that you know you can have, be, or do anything, and there are no limits, what do you want? Asking is the first step in the creative process. So it is a habit to ask. If you have to make a choice and you don't know which way to go, ask. You should never be stumped on anything in your life. Just ask. You can do that. Sometimes if you're not sure what to do, and you have a decision to make, ask for the easiest path, or ask for the path that will allow you to experience less suffering or more happiness. And ask for a sign that can line you up with that path. And you can do that. Now, if it's a decision you have to make, and you're not allowed to have help with it, then you're not going to get anything. But you can still ask and hope that you get a sign that makes your life a little easier. And that's what tends to happen sometimes with me, is I'm kind of wondering about something that I'm doing work-wise, or whether I should continue to go in a specific direction. And usually the day that I start to wonder or even question what I'm doing, I'll have something come up within that day that affirms the change, or affirms my position, my original position, and to stick with it. And so it's usually one or the other that tends to happen or comes up in that same day. So I recommend asking and asking for that type of affirmation, or that type of just support and a sign of some sort. This is really fun. It's like having the universe as your catalog. You flip through it and say, I'd like to have this experience. I'd like to have that product. I'd like to have a person like that. It is you placing your order with the universe. It's really that easy. This is where it gets a little bit convoluted, and where people start to get into trouble, because the first things people want to manifest or attract are physical things. We are obsessed with physical, superficial things. So that's the first thing people want, physical, superficial things. I wanted a luxury vehicle. Like, I have a truck, but I wanted a luxury car. And so I was like, I want a luxury car, and I want to drive a nice, luxury car, but I also want to keep my truck. And then my partner's mother, she decided to upgrade her car. And what did she have? I forgot what kind of Cadillac. She decided to upgrade her Cadillac, and she still had a really nice Cadillac. And so I was like, I'll buy it, I'll take it. She was selling it for nothing. I was like, are you kidding me? That's like worth way more. And so I bought it for like nothing, and I ended up having a Cadillac, and then I had my truck. It wasn't a new Cadillac, and it wasn't like what I was expecting, but it was exactly what I asked for. And I, of course, followed through with my part in that. And I had it for almost like a good year and a half, 2 years. But I was like, oh my God, I'm paying for a vehicle I hardly drive. I still drove my truck everywhere. And not only that, but it was like the upkeep. You have to pay for the oil. You have to pay for the light, the sticker and the registration every year. I'm like, that's extra money. I'm like, I can just put that for something else. And so I realized, why do I need 2 cars? I just have the truck, and I'll just leave it with the truck. And so I got rid of the Cadillac. I was like, I don't need it. It's just an extra. But sometimes, and it's okay. And so here's what you could say. You could say, oh, well, you didn't get a new Cadillac. No, I didn't get a new Cadillac. I got an old Cadillac. However, that old Cadillac was even in its shape, even though it was an older model, it was still a nice vehicle, and she did a very good job of keeping up with it. So it was a stepping stone towards this luxury vehicle that at that time I had been like imagining and thinking about, etc. So it was a step up. So I had the opportunity to drive a luxury vehicle for a while, and I got that experience. Now I could have used that to build a new experience, newer model or a newer vehicle. But when I had it for a while, I decided I didn't want another vehicle because it's just too much effort to take care of 2 vehicles. So I decided not to have it. But I could have used it as a stepping stone. And so when you are having experiences, when you want something, don't focus so much on a thing, focus on experience. Like, what are you designed to experience? What do you want to experience? A lot of people, when they're looking for love, they focus on like superficial crap. Like, oh, he must be tall, or he has these features, or he has this. And then they get stuck on that, and they're like, I can't ever find love. I'm like, maybe because you're superficially in love with an idea of something that isn't really going to give you love. That's just a superficial idea of something. So you need to get realistic. What does love look like? Oh, it looks like a perfect man. No, that's the physical thing. What does love look like? Oh, well, it looks like The Notebook. I'm like, okay, that's a movie that Hollywood made up. Come back to reality. What does love look like? Can you tell me an experience of love you've had or witnessed in your life that you can relate to? Well, no, you don't know anybody in your life that's in love or that has that love? No, I don't really know. Okay. Well, then what do you witness? What have you seen in your life that can help you understand what love is? Well, my grandpa and my grandma, they were together forever and they loved each other, but they weren't like the couple on TV, I'm like, okay, but is that the closest thing to love that you know of? Yeah. Okay. And that's the thing that you can materialize. That's what you can achieve, because that is relatable to you. You can understand that. You have an experience with that. And that's the experience that's attainable for you. So if you want something past that, you need to find either a couple, or you need to look to see if there are people who actually have this like idealized epitome of love that you seem to be hooked into because of watching too much TV. So if that don't exist and you don't see that and find that anywhere, then you need to get realistic with your idea of love and then focus on that experience and having that experience come into your life. Not on this imaginary thing you don't have no idea what it's like, because that's nothing. You can't relate to that. You can't tell the universe what that is, because the universe doesn't know what that is based off of what you're relating that to. You're relating it off of an idea, an imaginary thing. If anything, you're only going to attract to you more love stories or more movies about love stories like that. That's the closest thing you're going to get to it. You're not going to get an actual experience of that. So you have to get clear and understand what's realistic for you in that moment, what's practical for you to attain in that situation. Okay, so you do not have to ask over and over again. Just ask once. It is exactly like placing... Oh, I already read that. Step 2 is believe. Believe that it's already yours. Have what I love to call unwavering faith, believing in the unseen. You must believe that you have received. You must know that what you want is yours the moment you ask. You must have complete and utter faith. If you had placed an order from a catalog, you would relax. You know you are going to receive what you ordered and get on with your life. Okay, so let me just abute with that as well. So absolute faith. Absolute faith is a fallacy. It doesn't exist. All of us doubt. All of us have doubts. All of us experience doubt in some way at some point in our lives. And the things that we have the most confidence in, or the most what you could call absolute faith, at some point that faith will be tested and you will question. So there is no absolute faith that's forever. There's just the practicing experience of solid faith or consistent faith. When I was working on manifesting certain things in my life, like moving here, for example, I definitely doubted. I questioned if it was going to happen. And I questioned a lot more in the earlier stages than later on when I decided that I was going to do this and I was going to make it happen. But I made it a point to talk myself out of doubt. And that's what you have to do. You have to talk yourself out of doubt, or you have to remind yourself that you're just having doubt. Still possible, you can still have or achieve the thing you want, but you have to accept the fact that it's okay to have doubt. Talk yourself out of it. Talk yourself out of it. Whenever I get into a dispute with my partner, you question the relationship, you question the validity of the relationship, you question the longevity of the relationship, then you have to talk yourself back or talk yourself out of it. Same thing. If I have a friend and we've been good friends for a long time and they do something that I just cannot get past, or there's something that's going on with the friendship, I have to ask myself, is this a viable relationship? Is this a viable friendship? Is this friendship serve me, or am I being taken advantage of? Or am I doing more than I should be? Or is this person, acting in ways that is unacceptable? And so if it's just us having a dispute or disagreement, then I ask myself, is this relationship worth that? Yeah, it is, because this is not a big enough issue to end a friendship or a relationship over. And so you talk yourself out of that, boundary, or talk yourself out off the edge. So when you're questioning whether you're going to achieve something or whether something's going to happen, you have to talk yourself back or pull yourself back from the circumstance or the situation and just say, you know what? No, it doesn't matter. And what I tell myself is, you know what? It doesn't matter whether we move here or not. I'm still going to act as if I'm still going to do everything within my power to make it happen. And if the universe flat out says no, not going to happen, after I've tried and done everything within practical means to help myself get there, then that's the answer. And I have to take it and go in a different direction than that. So that's what you have to do. And so, but that doesn't happen often. And most people will be able to achieve the experience they're desiring to have if they do what they're supposed to do to get there. Most of the times you will not get a no. If you get a no, it's because that thing that you're desiring, whether it's an experience or a thing, it interferes or conflicts with your soul plan. It interferes with your soul's path and experience. If you are supposed to become someone or go through an experience where you're supposed to be empathetic to other people's experiences, or you're supposed to make big changes that might help cancer research, then you're going to experience or encounter cancer in one way or another. And so if you are going through the experience of overcoming or coming out of a diagnosis of cancer, and yet you wanted to also do some big things to help people who were suffering from that as well, but you're also, you've got it yourself, and then you're like, why am I going through this? Why am God's punishing me, or why am I suffering, etc.? Well, you wanted to do good things in this world, and you desire to help people, and you desire to help make things easier for people. And if you decided at some point that you wanted to help people who were suffering from cancer, then some of the best ways to experience and empathize with those people is to go through what they've gone through. Doesn't mean you're going to go and die of it. Doesn't mean you have to go and be ravaged by it, but you have to understand it. And so sometimes the things that I talk about with you guys and what I can relate to is because I've been through it, or I've experienced it or seen it. So I understand. And that's why I try to focus on talking about the things that I know more about and talk less about the things that I have no real investment or interest in. And so there are some people who, even though I'm a psychic and a spiritual teacher, people automatically assume that I have experienced everything spiritually and that I know all about everything psychically or spiritually. And I don't. No person does. And so there are certain things that I don't have as much experience with just because it didn't really hold as much interest for me. For example, like astrally projecting. The experience and the practice of astrally projecting, there are people who automatically assume that I'm an expert at astrally projecting. I'm like, no, I'm pretty set with my body, and I'm here for a reason. I'm not trying to spend hours disconnecting from my body and like operating in the astral plane. That's just not an interest for me. So I don't have as much experience with that. So I don't talk about it as often because it isn't something that I am a specialist in. So I try to focus on the things that I'm more special, that I'm more connected to, or that I feel more bonded to. So when it comes to the idea of like manifesting something or working towards something, if you are trying to manifest or to attract something that goes against your soul's plan for you in this lifetime, it's not going to show up and it's not going to happen. You'll be forced to, in a way, to have to go through the experience that is necessary for you to achieve the goal of your soul and what it desires to have in this lifetime, in this experience. So I'm going to stop there. I know it's like not that we haven't been reading as much, but I want to go through some of the questions here because I know you guys are asking questions about this. So I'll stop there. So let me go through here real quick. Lisa, vision boards. Oh, girl, Lisa, I did a whole thing about vision boards. It's actually on my website, I believe. So you go to my website. I think there's a video that we put out last week, or should be coming out any minute now, where I go into detail about vision boards and how to do it properly. And there's a right way and a wrong way to do vision boards. Most people that I know do vision boards the wrong way, and it's obviously the wrong way. So if you have more than 4 or 5 pictures on a vision board and you have way too many words, and if you have it cluttered with way too much garbage, it dilutes your focus. And not only that, most people focus on something visually, they don't focus on the experience. So whenever you do a vision board, focus on what you choose to experience. See that is a representation of what you're desiring, because that's not going to get you anywhere. But focus on something that can trigger an experience. So if you want to have for example, myself, when I was trying to get into shape or trying to lose weight, I was trying to lose about 50 or 60 pounds. I didn't put a vision of a perfect person's body on there. I just took a picture of myself when I was younger, where I was svelte and I looked at my best, and I just put it on there, and that was my vision board. And then I practiced feeling that the way that I used to feel in my body at that time, because that's how I could relate to that. And then that will bring up a lot of opportunity for me to line up with that. So you have to reach for the experience of something, not necessarily reach for the visual representation of something. All right, so those are personal questions. So let me go over here. Oh, thank you, Miss Jenny. Appreciate that. So Cassie's like, I'm good at working the secret except with relationships. I always manifest them and they always become the same thing over and over again. And that has to do with triggers. So here's an example of what I went through in my life that helped me to understand this. So and I'll give you 2 examples of this. So I grew up when my mother remarried, or not she did remarry, because she was married once before, but it wasn't to my father. But my mother remarried when I was 4 or 5 years old, and she married this guy. This was a Hispanic guy. He was from El Salvador, and his name is Pedro, and he was an asshole. He was using her for his green card, and he just treated her like shit, and he treated me like shit. And he was very abusive, very much physically, emotionally, etc. The whole 9 yards, and the family hated his ass. But anyways, but I always wanted his love. I always wanted him to treat me like a son, because I didn't have a father. I grew up without a father. I used to cry to my mom when I was a kid. Why won't my father meet me? Why won't he see me? Why won't he come and see me? If he just saw me, I know he'll love me. And so I would cry sometimes, come home from school and cry that I didn't have a father. And so she felt bad, and I think she felt pressure as well. So when they got together and they got married, I thought I was going to have a dad now. I thought he was going to be my father and was going to treat me the way a father would treat a son. He didn't. He hated me. He hated me because I wasn't his kid, and he hated me because he felt like I was in the way. And so he just mistreated me. And so I always wanted that love, and I never got it from him. And so I mean, this is the kind of person that he was. I wanted a pet bird, and he took a piece of wood and he threw it at a blue jay in the tree. The blue jay fell, was alive for maybe a couple of days, and he says, "Here you go. Here's your bird." Like, that's the kind of person this was. So this is not a kind person. This was not a good person internally. And so what ended up happening is that as I got older, and I was going into relationships, and I was dating guys, and I was trying to find love, like most people are trying to find that like, you know, imaginary love that we all see on TV. I found myself drawn to a certain type, and then I ended up at some point dating a guy. It was my ex, a guy who his family was from El Salvador. He had very similar traits and qualities as the stepfather, and I fell in love with this guy, and he gave me that love. That I thought that's what I was wanting, or that's what I was needing. But along with that also came forms of abuse. And so it was a repeating pattern. And the reason why it repeated is because a part of me after my stepfather was out of the picture was broken inside. It was not okay. And it was desiring for healing and for recovery from that trauma. And so my heart was seeking out any person that could help give me an opportunity to recover myself or to overcome a similarity to that relationship, so that I could move past it and I can grow from it. And I ended up in a relationship with someone very similar to my stepfather. So it was a repeating pattern. It became a repeating pattern. And so that's one example of it. The second example was when I first started building my business. The first time I went into business was with a very good friend of mine. We had been friends for like 10 years. And she was a Reiki practitioner. She was a teacher. She was also a masseuse. And we had been friends for so long, and she knew what I could do psychically. And so at that time in my life, my abilities were switched off. They were not really cooperating or working with me. Every time I would try to sense and so forth, it wasn't working. And so I kind of gave up on trying to be a psychic and a medium. And I said to myself, well, if I can't be a psychic or medium, then I need to get into something in this industry, because I still want to be part of this industry. I don't want to just do regular work for a living. And at that time, she was teaching Reiki, and she offered to teach me a Reiki class, my Reiki. And so she taught me, and she certified me in Reiki, and I stuck with her. And I decided to do like an internship with her. And I interned with her for about a year, meaning that she taught me about, you know, hands-on Reiki and doing it with clients and so forth. So I practiced for about a year. And during that year, I learned a lot. I grew, and I was able to build a following of people who were coming to me for Reiki, not on a regular, not consistently, but enough where it was starting to generate income for me. And I was earning about $500, $600 a month. And so that was enough for me to like use that towards other things. But at that time I was like, I really want to have my own practice. I want to be able to do this for a living. And so she was needing a bigger space. I was needing a space. And we decided we were going to go into business together. Well, we went into business together. I came in with my Starbucks background and all these marketing strategies to just promote ourselves, promote the practice, promote the business, etc. But it was a bad decision on my part. It was a mistake to do that, because that was pretty much the beginning of the end of our friendship, because there were some shady things that happened in that whole situation. And I didn't want my business to be represented by all of these shady things that were going on with that. Or with her business. So I decided to disconnect myself from that. And so there I was starting my business with someone, and I found myself compensating for their lacks or for what they were missing in the business. And instead of focusing on building my business up, I was focused on stabilizing and helping them build their business. So when I left that situation, I was looking for a new space. And I met another person, I met another lady, and as we started to get to know each other, and she had a spare space in her studio, and she was a hairstylist. And so I decided, okay, well, let me rent out the space, and I can do readings from there. And so I started to do that. It literally was a duplicate and a repeat of that exact same situation with the prior friend, where I tried to help somebody else out. I ended up helping them out more than I was helping myself. So I found myself doing more for their business, trying to get their business. I mean, I was literally cleaning her salon when I wasn't working. Like that was what was going on there. And so things that she should be doing for her business, I was like making it so that clients would come in and they would have a better experience or much more fulfilling experience. And so I was propping up her business and stabilizing her business instead of helping myself. And I ended up in the exact same situation with my old best friend. And I was like, oh my God, this is like the repeat same bullshit that I just went through. And so I realized something in that second time. The third time, I'm hard-headed, so sometimes it takes me a while to learn something. Third time, I started to, at that point, my partner and I came to an agreement that I was going to start working from home. So I started doing business out of my home, out of my house. And that seemed to work for me. But then I met another psychic and she was very gifted, very good, but she didn't have that business savviness. And so when I first met her, my first inkling, my first desire was, first of all, I said, hey, you're amazing. You're really good, but you can totally take your business to the next level. And so I offered to help her. And at first she was very suspicious of me because I guess, and I can understand that. Sometimes when you meet people and they just want to help you, you can be very suspicious. Like, what's your hidden intention or what's your agenda? I didn't really have an agenda or an intention. I just saw how good she was and I wanted to help her and I knew enough about business. And it wasn't like I was gonna, wasn't gonna cost me anything to give them business advice. Being the store manager for Starbucks for many years, I knew business. So, I offered to help her and ended up doing a hell of a lot more, and I was taking away time from my business. So I bought photography equipment so that we could take professional pictures for her. And I gave her a bunch of stuff from my old studio space so that she could use it to fill in the empty spaces in her office, because her office was just 4 walls. There was nothing there. So when I gave her all this stuff from my old studio space, it looked like the ambiance was nice and everything. So I did all these things. So basically I became this person again, trying to help them with their business, and I was taking away time from my business, and I was repeating the same thing all over again. I realized that after that, at that point, my partner said, like, what the hell is wrong with you? You keep trying to help these people. You need to let them figure things out on their own. It's like, stop trying to do everything for everybody. Like, just do your thing. Focus on your business. And that was around the time where I started to get serious with my business, and then that's when it took off. It only took 1 year, but it took off within a year. But it took me figuring that out, and I had to go through several years of figuring that out, and then realizing what I was doing and why, and then being more selfish, intentionally focusing on my business so that I could build it up. And that's when it changed for me. So whenever you're repeating these cycles or these patterns of behavior, it's because there's something in it that you're still learning about yourself, not about the relationship or not about the situation, about yourself, that you just are having the hardest time implementing or making that switch. And so if you are finding yourself repeating the same kinds of relationships, then there's something that you're repeating or doing that has not changed in the way you're operating, the way you're behaving, the way you're acting regarding that person. And that's just going to be a repeating pattern, whether it be a relationship or a romantic relationship or a friendship or a family relationship. But it's a repeating pattern, and there's something you're supposed to gain from it, or that you're healing through that experience. Doesn't mean you should stick with it or you should continue to sustain it, because it's only there for that lesson. It's for a lesson, it's for a season, it's for a reason. So that's the reason why that tends to happen. So once you start to catch the themes and the repeating patterns, you can start to work on that within yourself. It's not easy because it requires you to reinvent yourself and to change what you're used to being. And the people around you who are used to you being one way are going to have a cow whenever you decide to change on them. But it's necessary for you to move forward and to let go of this old energy and to change your state of being. Well, yeah, shine be you. I constantly pick up on people's energy so much. I don't want to be around crowds. Now, is this a bad thing? I don't want to isolate myself. Here's the thing. When you choose to help people as something in your life, if you choose for that to be something in your life's work, you have no choice but to mix and exchange energy with people. The only way you're going to be able to be there for other people is if you allow yourself to have that exchange of energy. Now, you can reduce it so that you're limiting how much of it you're going to interact with and engage with. I know from experience that when I had an in-person practice and I had people who were coming to see me in person, it was a hell of a lot more energy and it was so much more draining for me after I was done working. And so I didn't prefer that. And when I moved everything over to online only, it acted as a boundary or barrier so that I wouldn't have as much energy exchange. There's still a hell of a lot more energy being exchanged, but it's nowhere near the amount as it was before. Because when you have that close proximity to someone in person, there's just a hell of a lot more energy. And I actually found that I was more accurate as a psychic when I did it over the phone or over the video calls than in person. And the reason why is because when you're sitting with someone in person, their energy field is extending out, and as a sensitive, your energy is extending out, and there's an intermixing that's happening there. So you're not just tuning in from an objective perspective at that point, you're also taking on all of that person's emotional baggage. And psychics have a tendency of changing their answers because of what the client prefers, and so they adjust themselves and then they are wrong when it doesn't happen. And so that's why I actually don't prefer in-person sessions, because that person's emotional energy can be so overwhelming. And as an empath, because that's how I started off as an empath, that person's emotional energy can overwhelm you, and immediately you're going to start to struggle with what you're actually sensing versus what's going on with that person and what they prefer. Now, and if you'll ever notice now when I do readings for people or I tune in and do a psychic reading for someone, I don't look at them anymore. I try not to look at them in the face because I don't want their visual or I don't want their emotional physical stuff to interfere with what I'm sensing. Because when I'm telling someone something that I'm sensing and I'm feeling the pieces and I'm trying to bring it together into some cohesive idea or some cohesive theory or prediction, I have to pay attention to what's going on in my head and what I'm getting. And if I'm too focused on that person's physical appearance, the faces they're making, people will make faces and not realize that they're making these faces. And so when you say to someone, something to someone and they're like, and that's going to shut you down and it's going to affect your ability to sense. That's why I just choose not to look at people, just because it's a waste of my energy. It's not going to help me in any way, shape, or form. Mediumship is a different story. With mediumship, you can look someone in the face because you're going to get what you're going to get. They may still give you faces, but it's somebody, your energy is coming from the spirit, not from the person that you're reading. But when I'm doing psychic readings, it's a different story. You're really caught up in that person's energy field, and you can take on that energy and those preferences, and then that'll force people to change their answers. And so I found myself being much more accurate and much more precise when I started doing phone or just video calls or e-readings, because it allowed me to have such a level of objectivity that I was not invested in the outcome. I was not invested in the final call that I was going to make with that. I wasn't invested in that. I was just sharing what I was getting. And that's why I look elsewhere. Well, two reasons. I look elsewhere because everything in my brain is so, it's happening so fast and it's complex that it's hard for me to pay attention to a person and not be drawn in by the person and then focus on this at the same time. So I have to look elsewhere and figure it out because I'm trying to figure it out in my head. So I have to pay attention to what's going on in my head, which is why I tend to look elsewhere anyways. And so that's why I do it that way. I don't want to I don't want interference from the person that I'm reading anyways, but I prefer not doing it in person. But I avoid crowds. I avoid heavily populated places because it's part of it's part of the thing. It's like a gynecologist. A gynecologist, he might spend all day looking at women's vaginas and giving them diagnoses. He doesn't want to go home and have sex with his wife. And so he's going to avoid that, or he doesn't have a high sex drive, most a gynecologist that I know of. But that's just the way, it's an occupational hazard. So if you are going to do anything in this world that has to do with people and their lives and caring about their situations or just helping them, you're going to take on their energy. You have to know that that's just a given, but you have to find ways of expressing it or releasing it. And so for myself, after I'm done with these, my energy drops drastically, and I can find myself very much just not wanting to interact or engage with people. So I do shut down a little more. But once I go for my walk, or if I vape, that helps me sometimes too. Going for my walk, watching, a show that gets me caught up in it, that can totally shake me out of that energy exchange so that I'm no longer being affected by them as well. The spiritual community has been a lot of hot drama lately, and I'm back to Kermit mode. That's okay. You don't have to, the spiritual community is mixed. It's a mixed bags of goods. The spiritual community is no different than politics, honestly. It's like people are just nuts all over the damn place. So you kind of have to just focus on, this is why I don't maintain a lot of friendships with people who are in the spiritual community, because I've run into this so often. It started with that first friend. That first friend showed me the dark side of the spiritual community. And after that, I noticed that these people who call themselves spiritual, there's some bullshit in that industry that is just never owned up to, and people don't acknowledge. This is why I wrote that article last year about the craziness in the spiritual community and how people are just full of shit. And it's a mixed bag of goods. It's not just because someone practices something spiritually or they're a psychic or a medium doesn't mean that they're a good person or that they're going to be making good decisions. Like your life has to be proof of the pudding. Yeah. And Cassie's like, people are always suspicious of nice people. Story of my life. Yeah, it is. Whenever someone is overly nice or overly, first of all, here's the thing that you should know about like being a professional psychic medium. If a client approaches me and tries to act like they're my best friend, or tries to act like, oh my God, I feel like I know you and we're like just gonna be the best friends or whatever, immediately my red flags show up. My red flags come up faster than I don't know what. And the reason why is because this went off. Hold on, guys. Don't know why that's happening. There, this is back up. Yeah, those, whenever someone's like, oh my God, we're gonna be such best friends, and I feel like I've known you, and and so they're like totally wanting to like be my bestie, and I'm just like, I'm like, immediately I put up a boundary of protection and I start to try to push that person away, because without fail, if I don't do that, without fail, it has happened every single time, that person goes crazy and the other side of their personality shows, and they turn out to be a really shitty human being. And I'm like, nope, not even messing with it. If someone's just friendly, that's a different story. People can be friendly to each other. But when someone's really eager to be my best friend, I push them away and I go into that like, oops, stalker mode, like, so that's what I do. But being nice is a different story. My best friend, when we first met, I was still recovering from that lost friendship with the other female, and I was still heartbroken. I was still recovering myself, but it's like I keep my circle small, and so it's not like I had another person that I could really relate to or connect to in that level. So when she came to me for a reading, I felt that energy, and so it was the weirdest thing. But I just sent her on her way like a regular client. That's what I do. I read for people, then I send them on their way. And she left, and she said when they were leaving my house, she and her husband, she turned to him and said, me and he and I, we're gonna be best friends, or we're gonna be really good friends. And he thought she was crazy, but my best friend's pretty psychic as well. So anyways, so that was the end of it. And then she wanted fast forward months, we hadn't talked to each other, nothing happened after that. And then she wanted to have her house smudged, and she had reached out to me for, to see if I can come over and do a whole smudging of her home. And I was like, yeah, I'm down for that. So I went over to her home and I started smudging her home and everything, and did a Reiki session while I was there as well. I took my mobile table, did a Reiki session. And she was just really friendly, but you could tell, she's my BFF she's like, back then she was a lot more, her self-esteem wasn't settled yet. She's still figuring herself out. And so you could tell she was still unsure of herself, but at the same time, life was being good to her and she was trying to like line up with that. But she was like, hey, every year my husband and I, we put together a tent at the rodeo, and, would you like free tickets to a concert or to the, and I was like, why are you being so nice to me? I was like, what's going on? What do you want? And so after that, I was like, yeah, I'm sure if you want to give me free tickets to the rodeo, why not? And so she gave me free tickets to the rodeo and to a couple concerts, and I gave those away because I didn't really plan it. I wasn't, but she really wanted me to go to the tent thing that they did every year, and I was like, okay. And so I was like, yeah, I'll go. And for me, going to public spaces, going to all of these events that are like a lot of people and people that are groups and stuff is very intimidating for me. So I wasn't prepared for that kind of interaction, but suffice it to say, I did go to the rodeo. I went to their tent. She was waiting outside the tent for me because she wanted to make sure I got there. And they're dealing with a lot of people. And so I thought that was weird. And I'm like, why is she waiting for me? Like, it's just like mixed with the other people. But I went and we chit-chatted for a little while. And after that, we just continued to talk and chat. And then we just became really good friends. It's been years now. We think it's been like 5 or 6 years now that we've been BFFs. But like, she's my best friend. And even though I don't have to talk to her every day and we don't have to do stuff on a regular basis, when we connect, it's like no time has passed. And we're like just catching up and then we're doing stuff together. She's the one that, she and her husband are actually the ones that I went to Peru with. And so, but even for a while, my partner and his mom were like, why are they being so nice to you? Why are they trying to like, get in with you? I was like, they just seem like really nice people. And maybe it's time that I get comfortable with just dealing with really nice people because I've not known people to be that generous before. And ever since then, I've met more generous people. And actually it became a thing where now I attracted so many nice and generous people, authentically genuine, nice people in my life who don't want anything from me and they just want to give. And so that has helped me to feel more comfortable being that way as well, and that renewed my faith in people, and that helped to heal my heart from that broken heartedness that I was going through with that ex-best friend. So I'm still suspicious of really friendly, super like I want to get in with you, but I pay attention. And if I don't need to be, if I don't trust somebody and I know that they're gonna actually at this point, whenever I do like e-readings, or whenever I have someone who is really reaching out to me, and they're very, very excited and it's like over the top or it's too much, I try to put some distance between me and that person. And if it's an e-reading, which I don't, just because someone books an appointment with me or someone books or buys an e-reading with me doesn't mean that I'm going to just accept everything, because I'm picky about the energy that I engage with. And so whenever I'm reading questions in an e-reading, all of my red flags go off. I'm like, oh no, this is not someone I want to deal with or mess with. And so I will let them know, hey, I'm sorry, I don't think I'm the right person to help you with the situations or with the issues that you're dealing with. So I'm going to just go ahead and cancel out the e-reading and I'm going to submit a refund. And then that's it. And I don't take it. And every single time I've done that now, I'm glad I do, because that person immediately wants to, like, either they become self-aware and they're like, I didn't realize that I was even coming off this way. And this, you reacting to this way, basically, Ferny, you rejecting me is making me think about myself and what am I doing? Because this is not, people don't reject me. I've always gotten something from psychics, and every psychic that I've gone to, they always tell me something, or they always give me something. I have never met a psychic who just is not interested in helping me and isn't even willing to try. I've never encountered that before. And I'm like, because I'm not here for the money, I'm here to help people. And if you're that person that is going to probably not take what I have to say and use it, and you're just going to twist whatever I have to say, and you're going to come for me because you're trying to elevate yourself or because you're mentally ill, I don't want to deal with it. And so I'm going to just, no, I'm sorry, but I'm not interested. And they typically, the people who are going to come for me will come for me at that point. And it doesn't take very much. Immediately they'll come for me and they'll start trying to bash me or push me down or whatever. And it's fine. They can come for me, but I get to choose who I'm going to interact with. And if I feel someone's energy is off and they're going to be a crazy person with me, I just don't do it. And I cancel the e-reading. And then I say, sorry, here you go. Here's your refund. I don't think I'm the right fit for you. I don't feel, now if I wanted to say, before I was going to say, I feel guided. I feel guided in telling you that I am not the person to help you. But then that will make them feel like I'm saying the universe is rejecting them. So when I just say, I don't feel I'm the best fit, and I think that I'm not going to be able to help you with your issues or with the situation, so I'm just going to go ahead and cancel this out and then, refund the money. That just lightens the load a little bit, but they still come for me because they don't like that. They don't like the rejection. But I'm like, I'm not mixing myself with people that I know are going to be crazy on me. Look at me looking all cute. Oh, thank you. right, guys. I think I'm getting to my time here. So let me just see if there's. I want to use you. Yeah, they do. People. Yeah, people. People. And you know, I'm a sucker for really cute guys. Even though I have a partner, but it's like we both flirt. We both have our own little online boyfriends. But I'm a sucker for a cute guy. So whenever a cute guy approaches me or messages me, I'm just like, oh, here comes somebody trying to like, you know, get in, and then they're gonna be like, you know, hey, Ferny, and then they like flatter me because they want a freaking reading for free. It without fail, it happens every single time without fail. That's why I'm like, be wary of cute guys because they use their tricky trickster ways to try to get in on there. Yes. So Rhonda, do you feel like we should trust our first instincts then, or do you feel like that's real? I think that we should trust our first instincts without creating a complete narrative with those instincts. In other words, if I meet someone and something feels off to me, or I just don't feel right about them, but I don't know why specifically, I might have ideas, but I don't know why, then my recommendation is just don't go against what you feel. You don't have to add a narrative to it. I mean, you know, there are times where people will be like, I don't feel right about this, but you know, oh, because this person's evil and they are the demon spawn. Like they create an entire narrative and they demonize that person. No, they might just be a really shitty person, or there may just be something that you're needing to avoid and your intuition is kicking off. They may not be a bad person. Y'all may just not be a good fit. So don't add a narrative to it. So whenever you feel a certain way about someone, there are people that have met me that immediately as soon as they meet me, they don't like me. They don't like me. They're like, I don't like him. I don't like him. I don't like him. And there are people who are like, you know, he's so dark and he's so, here's an example of this. In the early period of me developing, in Houston, there was a store called, there was a shop called Body, Mind, and Soul Bookstore. And I think a lot of people are probably familiar with it. But anyways, this bookstore, so I did a psychic Sunday, because they used to have a psychic Sunday. I don't know if they have it anymore or not, but they used to do the psychic Sunday every Sunday. So in order for me to be a reader at the psychic fair, every you know, whatever, I had to go and give the owner a reading, and then I had to give one of the people who worked there a reading. So I did, and the owner didn't really say so much about the reading. She just said, you can start, you know, you can start. But the person, the other person that worked there, they said, you know, this is like one of the best readings I've ever had. And this was in my early days. This is when I was just starting out. And so I went and did the first Psychic Sunday, and I don't even know how people heard about me, because I was still new to the game. I didn't have a presence. People didn't know who I was yet. I didn't have the presence that I have now online. But I showed up to my first Psychic Sunday, and the other readers were giving me like the dirty eye, you know, el ojo. It's that Spanish eye for like, you know, I hope your shit stinks, you know. So they didn't like me coming in there, and I was like, okay, I don't know why people are hostile, you know, don't get it. Except for one person, which was he was a sweetheart, but everybody else was just like, they were just suspicious of me. And then I sat down, and they're like, here you go. Here are all the people who are already booked with you. And so people can call, and they can request the reader, and then they pay their amount. And so you have a whole list of it. Well, I was booked up, and it was my first time, and these people did not know who I was. But some of the other people who had been with this Psychic Sunday, who had been readers there for years, did not have full bookings that day. And I was like, how did people hear about me? Well, apparently the owner had told all their friends or people, and that's why people decided to go and book ahead. So I went, I think I did like, I want to say either 7 or 15. I don't really know how many. I want to say it was like 7 readings. It might have been more than that, but I want to say that it was at least 7 readings. But the first couple of people that I read for, they were... One of the ladies, she was very pushy, and she was like, you know, and for me, I was still nervous. I was anxious. I was nervous, and I was still getting comfortable with my ability in sensing. So it took me a little longer to tune in and to sense the details. But she was like, and back then I was using tarot cards. So I had my tarot card desk, and I was trying to figure some things out when I was tuning in. And she was like, come on, you know, come on, tell me what you see. Come on, hurry up. And she was trying to like rush me. And I was just like, this bitch, like this is my first time like, give me a chance to get what I'm getting in my head. Let me wrap my head around everything. Don't push me. Don't, so that already like was messing with me, but I still tried to push through it and fight through that. And then she was like, only wanted to hear what she wanted to hear, which was like, am I gonna get my $10 million? I'm writing a book. Am I gonna get my $10 million? And I was like, no, I don't see you getting $10 million. I feel like you're gonna write a book and you'll get through the first one, but you might have to do some adjustments or revisions, and then you're gonna try again with the second one. And I can see it turning into a 2 or 3 book series, but I don't feel like I'm not seeing $10 million. I feel like you'll do fine, but it may not be what you're wanting. Like, she was all huffy and puffy, and she was upset that I said that to her. Okay, well, tell me about my relationship. Tell me about my relationship. And it's like, okay, well, I feel like there's this gentleman that you might have be involved with, and I feel like he's away, or there's going to be like a distance thing between you two where y'all might be in 2 different places. And she's like, yeah, this is my fiance. He's, he works up in New York, and he's going to be moving down here, so we can finish and get married and stuff. And I was like, I don't feel like he's going to move down here. And she was like, what? What do you mean he's not going to move down here? I was like, I don't know. I just feel like something doesn't feel like it's lining up. And I feel that even though he may be making the plans and starting to make changes, I just don't see him moving. So either something is going to change last minute, or you both are going to decide this isn't going to work for you. And she was like, well, every psychic that I've ever been to has told me that this person is my soulmate. And I'm like, I don't think this person is your soulmate. I don't feel like this is your soulmate. I feel like this is just a relationship. And she was like, what? She was like, no, every psychic and I said, well, I don't know what every psychic has told you. I just don't feel this way. And she was like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. And every psychic has said that this is my soulmate, and I said, honestly, I feel like you're going to be dating or seeing somebody else. And she was like, well, I am dating somebody else. And I was like, then what the hell? In my head, I'm like, well, what the hell are you asking me if this guy is your soulmate and he's moving his entire life to come and be with your cheating ass here in Houston? Like, what the hell is wrong with you to think that he's going to follow through with that when he finds out you've been cheating on him? Like, okay, girl, you ain't making any sense. So at that point, I knew what I was getting, and I was like, this fool is crazy. And so after that, and after being honest with her about what I saw, she had the audacity to go up to the owner and to tell the owner, I don't know where you got him from, but he is just trash, and he is so dark. He's such a dark, evil person, and he has this dark energy. And so she was just like trash talking me. And then I was like, okay. And I didn't know that was happening. But that happened, right? I didn't know that. I was still doing my readings for the day. And then I had another client, and then I had another client. I think the third one was also someone who worked there. And she was like, and after I read for her, she said, thank you so much for being honest. She says, a lot of these other readers they're not honest, and they just like tell you what you want to hear, but you're like being really honest. So I appreciate that, because we don't see a lot of that. And I was like, oh, okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that. So that made me feel good. And then once everything was said and done, and I was done with all my readings for the day, the other owner, who was the sibling of the main person, the other owner came up to me and he said, you were a hit. You were a rave. We heard so many good things about you today. And like, people really appreciated and enjoyed your readings. And I was like, oh, that's cool. He's like, yeah, we haven't heard. What he said was he hadn't heard so many compliments about a reader in a long time. And so that obviously like went to my head and like totally made my head bigger. But I was like, cool, well, I appreciate that. And then they never called me back. Never called me back for more readings. Well, it turns out that because some of the people were friends of the owner, did not like the honesty that I had. And so they were telling the owner that, oh, he's wrong, or no, he's not, or he's not right for this place, or he's dark and he's got a dark soul. And that's what they said. And I was like, okay. And so I even went up when I went up and I asked, I said, hey, are y'all going to do another Psychic Sunday? And what time should I come? And the guy who worked it, he was like, they're not going to have you back. And I was like, why? He's like, we have never heard so many complaints in our history of ever having Psychic Sunday. And I was like, what? And I was like, what is going on here? I was like, okay, I'm getting all of these compliments from the people that I'm reading. And then the other owner is telling me that they heard so many positive things about me from the different people who got readings, but you're telling me a completely different story. So, and I asked him, I said, was it this one female who was the friend? And he didn't want to confirm that. He says, I can't divulge that information. All I can say is that, you have to be positive, and you have to focus on what people can do to make a positive out of a negative, or to be positive. And I was like, okay, that I get that. You know, I understand the idea of being positive, but at the same time, when I don't see shit, I don't see shit. Like, it ain't gonna happen. I have to be honest, and I have to stay within integrity of what I'm getting, not changing my answer to accommodate the client. And so if they want to hear a lie, then they can tell me I just want to hear lies. I'm happy to make up stories for these people, but I'm not going to tell them what they want to hear. I'm going to tell them what I sense and what I feel. They don't want to know, then don't go to a psychic who can be honest with you. Go to someone who tells you what you want to hear. And so that was my response. But that's what I took away from that. And that was just a little bit of a taste of what this industry is like and what these places are like, which is why at this point I stopped partnering up with other psychics and other people, because you have to be very careful with who you want to do business with or who you want to know. At this point in my life, when it comes to other psychics or with people who are in the industry, the only two people that I've ever met who I know that are super genuine, that I'm friends with, is my teacher Pam, my teacher Pam Coronado, and then also Paul Selick. Paul Selick, he's a channeler. So those are the two people that I know personally that I would say is 100%. They're like aligned with themselves, and there's no like duplicitous way of doing things. There are other people that I've met who are very kind-hearted, but at the same time, it gets sketchy in this industry, and you have to be careful. But those are the two people who are known that I feel. That I feel are very much like on the same page or within integrity and stay very much consistent with what they do. But you have to you have to be careful, because I know other people who are spiritual, but Sandra Logan's one. Ingrid is super sweet. And so there are other people, but at the same time, it's really hard to dive through all of these different characters, because you will meet people who are just, they don't have it together, or they're duplicitous, or you can't trust them, or, and so it is what it is. This is what you find in the industry. So, all right, guys, I love you all. I will, see, I didn't know that lady is ungrateful. So I love you all. I will see you next week. Stay safe, be masked. If you haven't been vaxxed, go ahead and get vaxxed. I don't care what you say to me. If this is your personal, just do it. I'm hearing about it from all my people. So the shit's going down. So y'all need to just